Hi, third grade, it's Mrs. Feathers. We're going to go over your grammar practice pages for this week. This week you are assigned pages 91 to 94. On page 91, we are going to begin looking at complex sentences. At the beginning of the year, we looked at simple sentences and compound. Now we're going to start looking at the third type, which again is complex. The box at the top tells us that a clause is a group of words that has a subject and a verb. An independent clause can stand alone as a sentence, so it's a complete thought. A dependent clause cannot stand alone as a sentence, so it's either going to be missing the subject or the verb, and it cannot be a sentence on its own. A simple sentence has one independent clause, while a compound sentence has two or more independent clauses. On this page, we're going to read each clause and write yes if the clause is independent, and write no if it is not independent. So we'll write yes if it can be a sentence on its own, and we'll write no if it cannot be a sentence on its own. Number 1 says, my dad works at a pet store. I have a subject, my dad, and I have my verb, works. So this is independent. Yes, it can be a sentence on its own. So on the line, you write yes. Number 2 says, takes care of the fish and reptiles. I'm asking myself, who takes care of the fish and reptiles? I am missing my subject, who or what the sentence is about. So I'm going to put no on the line because it is not an independent clause. You will go through the rest of these writing yes or no on the line. Your next page is page 91. On this page, we're looking at subordinating conjunctions. Dependent clauses cannot stand alone as a sentence and are introduced by subordinating conjunctions. Some subordinating conjunctions are after, because, if, unless, while, until, when, and before. You are going to want to refer to that list of words as you are working on this sentence or on this page. The directions state to read each sentence, circle the dependent clause, and write the subordinating conjunction on the line. Let's do 2 of these together. Number 1 says, after my dad gets home, we will go to the game. First, I'm looking for my dependent clause. So my 2 clauses are after my dad gets home, and then we will go to the game. We will go to the game is independent. It could be a sentence on its own. After my dad gets home is missing my verb. I'm going to scroll to the bottom, drag up one of my circles, and circle after my dad gets home. The subordinating conjunction is the word after. Subordinating conjunctions always start the beginning of your dependent clause. We're going to skip over number 2 for now and take a look at number 3. I think the game will be called off because it is raining. I think the game will be called off is independent. It has a subject and a predicate. Because it is raining is dependent. So I need to drag one of my circles up and circle my dependent clause, and then write my subordinating conjunction on the line, which again is always the first word of your dependent clause. You will go back to number 2 and then down to 4 through 10 to finish up this page. Page 93, we're looking at commas in sentences. The box at the top tells me when an independent clause begins a sentence, it is usually not followed by a comma. When a dependent clause begins a sentence, it is usually followed by a comma. A complex sentence includes independent clause and one dependent clause that is introduced by a subordinating conjunction. I like to have a little clue box as I do these sentences. I type ID, so if you have an independent clause, then dependent, you do not need a comma. However, if you have a DI, dependent clause, then independent clause, you need a comma in that sentence. I will leave this on this page for you guys to refer to. We're going to do 2 of these together, one of both. The directions state to combine each independent and dependent clause, use the commas correctly. Number 1 says our school day ends when the bell sounds at 3:30. I notice that our school day ends is independent. I have the subject, our school day. I have my verb ends. When the bell sounds at 3:30 is dependent. So I have an ID sentence, and using my key, I do not need a comma. So I'm simply typing this sentence as one complete complex sentence. Number 2 says, unless I have soccer practice, I go home and do my homework. Unless I have soccer practice is dependent. It is missing the verb. I go home and do my homework is independent. It could be a sentence on its own. Therefore, I have a DI sentence, and my reminder up here reminds me I need a comma. You have 3 more to do on your own. Your last page for the week is page 94. Your proofreading page. The box at the top goes over all of the directions and rules from the previous pages. You have 2 parts on this page. Part A says rewrite the sentences below. Use commas correctly as needed. Let's look at number 1 together. When summer vacation starts, I am going to visit my aunt in California. When summer vacation starts is a dependent clause. I am going to visit my aunt in California is independent. Therefore, I need to add a comma between my dependent and independent clause. Part B says to combine the following dependent and independent clauses, write the sentence correctly on the line. So you're doing the same thing down here. Think, do you have an ID sentence or a DI sentence as to whether you need a comma or not? This is one of the more tricky skills in 3rd grade. So please be sure you're looking back at teacher comments to see if you need to make any corrections. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us. Have a great day, 3rd grade. Bye.